So I give you the sample essay after you attempted to write your essay for the sheer fact that I never intended to grade that essay. It's your first one. It's practice. The mistakes you make right now, right then, you won't make on the next one. So we're dialing it in right now on expectation, right? Like that's the whole purpose of this, is to dial it in with the expectation and to make it so that you don't keep making the same mistakes. So I'm going to read and annotate as we go along. If you have questions, I would go ahead and ask me so that we can have it on the recording for everybody to listen to that was absent. After the initial Industrial Revolution in the 1750s, in England, machine production increased jobs in factories for people to operate machines, as well as produce products much faster and more efficiently than had been produced by hand in the putting out system. So that right there is enough for context. It tells why machines were around. It started here. Here it is. However, during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the mechanization of the cotton industry in India and Japan increased cotton production. There's your first group. Increased the need for labor. That's going to be the second group. So I'm marking 1, 2 to work the machines. While women dominated the factory in Japan, India, more men. That's going to be 3. That's your gender group. Men work the machines. Still, the poor rural peasants moved to the cities. There would be 4 groups to take factory jobs in both Japan and India and experience poor working conditions. There's 5. So in their thesis, they set up that there are 5 arguments they're going to make during their essay. I don't think 5 arguments are going to be argued throughout this, but they at least set it up for 5. Okay, so that's like their dump at the beginning. This is how I'm going to answer the question. I've annotated the docs. This is where I think I'm going to go. All right. The increase in mechanization in both Japan and India led to an increase in cotton production. So that's a topic sentence that's pulling that first, right? There's an increase in cotton production. So that's that first part of your thesis that they pulled. And they're going to use docs 1, 5, 6, and 7. The production of cotton yarn and cotton in India from 1884 to 1914 increased dramatically because of the increase in machines in factories. That's EV of 1. So they've used doc 1. Please mark your paper. After the push of the Meiji Restoration in the late 1800s, Japan rapidly industrialized. This and the fact that Japan rapidly industrialized, that's going to be EBD. Turning to a more Western technologies, Japan also had an increase in production. But it's harder to tell if the increase was solely because of the increase in machines, because the graph, doc 1 lower, does not specifically break down the difference between hand-spun versus machine-spun yarn. So that's EVA of doc 1. They're using it to argue that we don't really know if it was machines that did it, but we think that the machines led to an increase in cotton production. Large machines in a factory setting are shown in the official company photo history in Japan. So that's EV of 5. The workers are sitting at stations and have several large rolls of yarn in front of them, showing that the machines were producing large amounts of yarn. EVA of 5. The photo from the official company history of the mill is a company taking the photo, and it's probably staged to exclude the dark, cramped, cold conditions and could have been used to recruit workers, showing them this picture, promising chairs to sit in or less crowded conditions than other factory. The factory would never put out unflattering image of the working machines or factories because they would never want to be accused of abuse of their workers. This picture, too, is probably meant to boast about the new large machines capable of mass production. So that right there is sourcing for 5. And I want you to hear that it goes in depth. That your surface, hey, it's a company picture, so then it's staged. Right? That's your surface sourcing that you tried on your blue sheet. That the way that this student wrote this out explains the so what. So what that it was staged, or so why does it matter that it was staged, right? It's a company picture. They're not going to want to show that unflattering. So this is the depth of sourcing I'm looking for, and that's the expectation. So that surface that you guys are giving me on your blue sheet, this is the intent of what I want. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Large machines are also evident in the picture provided by the British official in 1935. That's EV of 7. Brought to the attention of the international community of cotton spinners by the British, this picture glorifies the efficiency of the machines by showing a lot of finished cotton product neatly stacked on the machine. So that's EVA of 7. Again, the analysis pardon me, of the document is showing an increase in production. So it's going back up, it's going back up to your argument, and it's tying it together. This glorifies the efficiency is a start of your sourcing for 7. So let's see how they do it. The British could be bragging to the international community because the British involvement in increasing production and mechanization in India. The British have an attitude of this couldn't have happened without our involvement in India, right? It's that glorification and efficiency of the machines. And it's by the British. And so there's your sourcing for 7. By 1935, India has issues with unemployed hand weavers flooding in from rural villages, which proves the increase of machine production puts the hand weavers out of a job. And so that's actually EVA of 6, because this analysis, this argument, this which proves, right, I'm going to double circle that. That which proves the increase of machine production, put the hand weavers out of a job. I can almost guarantee that in your essay that you just used, you didn't have a document proving your argument. That you never said which proves. That I want you, when you're looking at all of these documents that the College Board gives you, I want you to look at how can I make this argument stronger? How can I use a document to make my argument stronger? So 6, they did that. We'll get to an EV of 6 later, but that's the analysis for EVA of 6. Factory working conditions in both Japan and India were extolled by the factories, but proved less rewarding than promise. What does extolled mean? Somebody give me a definition of extolled. What do you think, Daniel?
Left out, like not included.
Say it again.
Left out or not included?
So extolled, like, what do you think?
Like exalted. Like they said it was better than it actually was.
They said it was better than it actually was. So if the factory's extolled, it's better than it actually was, that's their perception, right? The factories think it's better than it was. Does that make sense? So extolled by the factories, but proved less rewarding than promised. We'll talk about that. So that's a topic sentence. Where did we talk about working conditions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in your thesis statement. Show me your hands. Yes, number 5. So that's 5. And I'm just going to circle that above that. The women remember standing all day in dimly lit factories with no heat and being paid very little. That's EV of 2. The women were older and factory work a distant memory. Okay, that's the start of sourcing. This influences how horrible the conditions were back in the day. So this part, this influences, is part of sourcing. The horrible conditions were back in the day is the EVA of 2. If the women hadn't had a terrible experience, then their memories would reflect a more positive view of the factories that they spent their time during childhood. The one woman's sister became ill and died after working in the factory. This alone would taint her memory to be negative because she blames her sister's death on the factory. Therefore, she only remembers the bad. That's sourcing for 2. Again, do you see your surface attempt at sourcing on your blue sheet or in your essay, and how in-depth the expectation is? This is the expectation. You need to tell me why. This is the so what. So what that her sister died. This is the so what. As the owner of the factory, Suzuki wants to keep his profits high and feels the workers who come from the rural communities don't know any better. He's justifying the wages he pays them look fair. That's EV of 3. I want you to underline wants to keep his profits high. That's going to tie into sourcing. He feels the workers are unattached and able to live on the wages he pays them. EVA of 3. As an industrialist, as a city dweller, and probably middle to upper class, he is so disconnected from the workers' desperate lives and their need to provide for their family they have left in the country. Right? That's sourcing for 3. It's like the situation around who he is. He's middle class. He wants to keep profits high. All of those reasons give to sourcing. Low wages are also evident in India. That's going to be EV of 6. The factory workers are paid so little that the average time they stay in the factories is under 2 years. EVA of 6. Again, you get a statement that says this proves the worker is unable to support themselves on the wages provided and must move on to another job in order to provide for their families. Okay, that whole this proves, right, makes argument stronger. We only do that when we are at the end of a paragraph. We're not going to do it for every document. At the end of the paragraph, you use the one that isn't as strong, but still you can take a piece of the information out of the document and make it prove your argument is better. And so this writer has done that twice. They did it at the end of the last paragraph, and they've done it at the end of this paragraph. And so you're having the documents interact with each other. You're using that document to prove your argument at the end of that group. Are there questions? Okay, let's look at the last paragraph here, or this last argument. In Japan, the majority of the workforce in factories were poor women or girls, while in India, males were the majority of the workers using machines. That's a topic sentence, and go back to your thesis right now and tell me which number that is. Show me your hands. Yeah, that's group number 3. They're going to use docs 4, 5, and 7. The research provided in the dissertation shows overwhelming evidence that India's factories were run by males workforce, while Japan's machines were run by the majority of women. That's EV of Doc 4. This research was included in a study of women in industrialization and could be skewed because the researchers selected a specific year. Yet the correlation to why those years are chosen is not clear. The data could have been chosen to back up research that Japanese women who were poor gained status when working in factories. So that right there is the EVA of 4. So this research included a study of industrialization could be skewed because the researchers selected specific year, yet the correlation to why those years is not clear. This vagueness as to why the years are chosen tends to leave the historian only to look at the big picture instead of these numbers were pulled, which could include imperialist tendency of Japan during those years. So that's like the situation around that document, and that's going to be sourcing for Doc 4. Right? So that underline is sourcing. The disparity between genders is evident in the photos provided. The Japanese photo shows women sitting at workstations where the men look like supervisors. There's EV of 5, while the British photo of the Indian textile mill shows only male workers running the machines. That's EV of 7. So actually it's EVA. It's doing, both of those are EVA. It's arguing the gender under that topic sentence. So that's actually EVA. We already did the EV for 5 and 7. When we did already talk about Doc 5 and Doc 7, we did it so that it's different than this. This is not a repeat of what was shown in that. We showed big machines, more production in the first one, and now this one's the gender. Yes?
I'm kind of confused on like the difference between EV and EVA.
So EV is just that you've used the document. EVA is that it's supporting the argument. So in this one, the analysis is that you're supporting the argument of gender. So this part of Doc 5, the Japanese photo shows women, is supporting that argument of your topic sentence that answers the prompt. So EVA is the argument. EV is just that you used it. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any not specific words, but general words that are used for mainly EV or EVA?
It depends on the document. It would not be something that I could tell you as a formula. All right, so let's just, before we look at this paragraph, let's just look, and I want you to leave room at the bottom because you're going to do a restatement of a thesis, the one that was actually argued here. And I want you to do your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And just from this back side, we have EVA of 7, EVA of 5, EV and EVA of 4 was sourcing, and EVA of 6. So on the other side, right, starting at the top, we have EV and EVA of 1. We have EV and EVA of 5 with sourcing. We have EV and EVA of 7 with sourcing. And we have EVA of 6. And so we use 6 in all 3 arguments. Interesting. Okay. EV of 6 is at the bottom. Okay. EVA of 2 with sourcing. EVA of 3 with sourcing. And so we've used all of the documents. Over to this side here, I want you to go like this. Did we have a thesis? Did we have context? Yes. EV, we used all of the documents. EVA, did we support an argument with all the documents? Yes. Okay. EBD, did we have EBD? Yes, Meiji Restoration. Sourcing? Yes. Now, complexity. I want you to hear that this is a solid 6 essay, right? The which proves thing, the argument there is not going to get it enough for complexity. Let's look if this last paragraph is enough for complexity. Mechanization leads to opportunity, though not always equally. This process, equality, yeah, that's wrong. It should be equally. This process of increasing production because of machines can be compared to the impact of the printing press on the 1450s. Oh yeah, no. That's not a good argument. I mean, that's not relevant to the industrialization process. Gutenberg's printing press, invention of the Chinese, but to Western Europe, it revolutionized the way people got information. The first book. Yeah, this is a data dump. This is okay, I think it's like this, and it's a stretch, but it really doesn't work. And so I need you to hear that good writing in our complexity isn't going to lend itself to just a paragraph at the bottom of the essay for complexity. Even though this cause and effect thing at the end is really good. So this right here is kind of a waste of time. I want you to hear this. This increase in knowledge and literacy will eventually lead to the Enlightenment, and then the scientific revolutions, then the instigation of revolutions. Consequently, this mode of communication through machines will increase through industrialization and evolve into telegraphs, telephones, radar, and eventually the internet, showing the importance of mechanization in the globalization process. That is a beautiful statement. The kid knows cause and effect, but I still don't think that it's enough to get complexity at the reading. So I want you to really avoid the last paragraph ditch of trying to tie it to something else somewhere else. Like having a counter argument, having the docs talk to each other. This is so close to complexity in the proves that and the argument that the student built. Had there been a little more weaving of that argument, I might be able to give it complexity. But I want you to hear this is a so solid 6 out of 7. That complexity at the reading, if you wrote this and left all of this out, right? Even the last paragraph, the last sentence, all of that out, that you might get complexity depending on who read it, depending on if the table leader will accept it, right? And if the table leader went, I just don't think it's there, that reader that reads it would have to accept that. So it's a good essay. I don't want you to be discouraged about that. So this is a 6 out of 7. There's no complexity.
How do you increase the complexity of a essay?
Again, if you had a counter argument within your groups, so if you found the document that kind of makes that group have a full rounded argument, in this, they argued that they had bad working conditions, right? No one in any of the docs here, I actually just came to it. The way that you could have had it in your bad working conditions thing, you could have talked about the perfect pictures, and, well, we glorified it. Was this bad working conditions? This was an increase in production. Okay, so had they used the pictures as the counter argument to bad working conditions, right? The pictures, they're beautiful. They're you know, showing perfect working conditions. That, well, and your sourcing does that. Had the argument up here, right, the glorifying the machines, the perfect conditions, been within the working conditions instead of the production thing, you probably would have gotten it. Because it's a counter argument, right? The source makes the counter argument not necessarily valid, but you could have argued it, is how that would have worked. I'll show, and you've seen complexity in other essays. When we get to the next sample essay, you'll see complexity again. So it's not, again, it's not something that's like so out there that it's unattainable, but it's really something that is like your superstar writers will get it. And that this is solid. It could have been arranged a little different to get that complexity. All right, I'm going to stop that recording. Did it not record? Pause.